And like us on Facebook, SuperTalk 1270.
It's time for Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270.
Good morning again. My name is Dustin Gawrylow. I'm filling in for Steve Bakken, who will be back tomorrow, I believe, unless there's a fill-in again. And with me today is State Representative Rick Becker, who is running for U.S. Senate against John Hoeven. Rick, how are you doing today?
Dustin, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
So, you've been highly involved in the basically what we call the Republican Civil War in North Dakota. I like to just jump into things because we don't have a lot of time. So, what are you seeing around the state as far as the dynamic in the ND GOP right now going into the convention?
Well, okay, so the Civil War, which I'd love to get into more with you, but let's just go ahead and use your term, Civil War. What we've got then are two general philosophies in the party or regarding the party, and one is that Republican needs to stand for something. We haven't been doing as good of a job as we could on that. Legislative integrity should be something that's held in high regard. We should be able to hold our elected officials accountable. You've got strong grassroots support for this type of stuff because they feel that they've not been getting what they should be getting if people were following the North Dakota Republican Party platform. On the other side, you have the people that like the system the way it has been. A lot of the legislators that are in, like it's the system, the club that they are accustomed to. Being held accountable is an uncomfortable sort of thing. It's difficult to look in the mirror and say, gosh, maybe people are feeling I am not doing as good of a job as I could be. And then the human nature is such that instead of looking in the mirror and asking, what could I do? What they find then is a boogeyman to say, well, this person or this group of people are extremists and they're leading an ill-informed grassroots movement, trying to take over the party to make it something that's not Republican or to just kill the Republican Party. So then the state of things is such that the side that I'm on, which is for accountability and integrity, is marching forward and doing what we can to get good people elected, and to get the folks that kind of wield the power within the party apparatus to have those people be conservative and have that sort of integrity as well. You've got the other side that I've described it as circling the wagons, and so they feel that their system is under attack, and so their approach has been to sort of put up a big wall to try and defeat attempts at what our side is trying to do, and hence you've got what is perceived to be the Civil War.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of stuff going on in these district conventions, which, 15, 20 years ago, if you got 30 people to a district convention, that was a high turnout event. And along this last 15 and 20 years, more and more people start showing up, and the folks that were able to very easily control the small turnout meetings back in the old days are now becoming very defensive, and you've got a lot of new, what I would call insurgents coming in and shaking up things. And the dynamic between the old time establishment and those insurgents has created so much angst that both sides just continue to push and push. And what you've got is situations like what apparently happened up in District 2, where some folks were upset and started chanting things. How do you, as a conservative who wants to push the party into a more conservative direction, take the reins on this and make sure that the folks that are supporting you are doing so in a way that helps you more than hurts you?
Well, yeah. So there's a number of things that you've said there. I'll talk about the last question here in just a sec, but I do want to point out that for many years, the people that have been in control, when conservatives have said we need a better system, this isn't right, yada yada, their reply was always, look, if you want to change things, then you're going to have to get the numbers, you're going to have to get more people here, and we're doing that now, and of course that's not appropriate in their mind, which is really weird, because it's always been whoever gets more people there. This isn't anything new. But to get to the question you had about the civility question. Well, for one thing, again, people need to keep in mind that what you have going on in North Dakota is not a movement behind Rick Becker. I offer my candidacy, which falls in line with what people in North Dakota are looking for. But this is not a single movement, a single campaign. This is going on despite, again, what the establishment people say when they're looking for boogeymen. These are independent individuals and small groups that are coming together, and they have essentially the same complaints. And they're some people, and reasonably so, are agitated. They feel like the system is gamed against them. And so, some can be boisterous. Now, our campaign has asked people to refrain from heckling and booing, and it's best just to show your support by, applauding and hollering in favor of the candidate you like instead of against the candidate you don't like. When Mikey Hoven was up and talking, someone had shouted out, he's a rhino, something like that. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but we just don't need that. And I apologize to Mikey directly for that. That doesn't represent our campaign. And I've said on the radio before, as I'm doing right now, I denounce that type of activity. Number one, we just don't need to go there, because we conservatives represent so many positive things. We don't need to take that approach. But secondly, as a point of strategy, that type of behavior or activity actually hurts my campaign, because there are plenty of people that are kind of on the fence. And when they hear what I have to say, they're very likely to come on board, because I speak the truth and I'm very transparent. But if the impression is that what I represent is more of the lack of civility, then people who are going to be turned off by that aren't even going to listen to what my positions or my answers might be. So so, Dustin, what it comes down to is, it's not as though a candidate can or should control an entire electorate. People are individuals, but nevertheless, I still say you will help me out more if you don't do that type of activity.
Yeah, that's why they call politics the art of herding cats, because it's very difficult to actually control anybody. It's hard enough to control the professionals, let alone the constituents and the general public that supports you, because they're going to obviously be very passionate and not necessarily know how to direct that passion in a completely constructive way, and that is a difficulty, and that is what having people at the district level organizing for you, part of their job really does have to be to give some level of minor instruction on how to operate to best serve the goal of the campaign, because obviously the folks on the other side are not doing that, and they fully understand the ramifications of what the perception of that sort of behavior is. And, just as you said, that there is it has a negative effect more so. And so you want to be able to generate and create some more, you want to look like the more professional candidate, and with more people in the room, and that it's a balancing act for sure.
Right.
We got to,
but also it's interesting because when you look at the people who are supporting me, some of the people supporting me, this is the first time they're involved in politics. And the reason they're involved is because they are so passionate about what's going on. And they bring that passion with them, and if you look at who's supporting John Hoeven, there's not a lot of passion there. I mean, if there's passion, it would be on their side. It would be not for John, but against me. So, we just have to keep in mind that these are the people that are going are regular, everyday people that are fired up. And so, if you put it in context, over the course of the 47 district meetings, the fact that you had 2 or 3 where people were doing some shouting or heckling, I mean, come on, we have to be reasonable.
It's always the greasy or the squeaky wheel that gets the attention, and the people that want to make you look bad are going to highlight the squeaky wheels to 1,000% just to make you look that much worse. And that's just part of the game. That's how politics works. We're going to take a break here a little bit early so that we have more time in the next segment. I will be right back. This is Dustin Gawrylow with Rick Becker talking about the U.S. Senate race.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270. Talk of talk and sports for Bismarck, Mandan. SuperTalk 1270. Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270.
Welcome back. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken, and we've got Rick Becker, who is running for U.S. Senate against John Hoeven with us for a little bit more time. Rick, there's a lot of critics out there, we'll just say that without saying names, that in various media that have a lot of ink and a lot of airtime, that have really pinned in on you personally. Where I don't see this happening in other cases. I've seen it in the past where certain figures have pinned in on Heidi Heitkamp, or they've pinned in on Rick Berg for calling him a slumlord and that sort of thing. But I've never really seen it at this level against one person for this long. And I'm wondering what you think or how you go about dealing with that, because, obviously the adult thing to do is to ignore it. But at some point, there's so much mischaracterization and so much spinning in a way that is meant to be derogatory, that at some point you do have to react to it. So as you go along with this campaign for Senate against John Hoeven, how are you going to handle that situation?
Well, that's a good question. I do ignore the vast majority of it once in a great while, when it's overly egregious, when it's just overt lies instead of innuendo. I'll say something, but really I'm reluctant to, because what you're doing is bringing more attention to that person or those people. So I prefer just to stay away from it. If I think that some component is getting traction, I'll address it in my own terms on social media or with an email or something like that, and just it's always the same thing. I tell the truth and I'm transparent, and people can always misrepresent certain things when you take it out of context or when you don't have the whole picture. So I guess to answer your question, the way I'll address it is just not with regard to addressing the person or people saying it, but talking to the electorate about, hey, here's this. John Hoeven intentionally misrepresented what I said about crop insurance. And it was getting a lot of traction because what he was saying was extremely alarming to farmers. And I talked to a lot of farmers, and then I put out social media, and I put out a video that directly shows that what John was saying was not truthful, side-by-side video. So just to go out and hit it, full forward, full frontal assault on not the person saying the mistruth, but on the mistruth itself, and just straightening things out.
Yeah, and obviously with what John Hoeven hit you on the farm issue, at least that's an issue and not a personal attack that is just unrelated to the actual race. And obviously Hoeven's whole shtick is that he stands up for farmers. It's the old fighting for the farmers message, and not being open at all to the intellectual debate as to whether the farm program actually helps the people that it is supposed to help, or whether it makes it more difficult for the farmers to actually farm and survive. And in fact, there's long-term economic data that shows that the farm program itself, it has led to great extent to the consolidation of farms, and the fact that family farms were defined maybe 40, 50 years ago just simply cannot exist anymore, because the farm program promotes and rewards consolidation of mega farms, and that you add that in with North Dakota's anti-corporate farming philosophy, and you have two different dynamics coming from different directions that really make it difficult for the farmers to really succeed in anything that they do. And then you add in the problems that they personally have with passing things on to the next generation, worrying about estate taxes, death tax, that sort of thing, and just having kids that want to farm, and the deck is stacked against farmers fairly heavily.
Yep, the new farmer, the young farmer especially. Yeah, so that's what we have to do is counter the misinformation, and I think a lot of see through it, especially if they're given the opportunity to hear both sides. Because so I say, hey, this program needs reforming. It shouldn't be a federal program. Let's reform it in a way that helps the farmer. The opposition says, hey, he wants to get rid of this and he hates farmers. So the analogy I give is we want to secure the southern border, and the Democrats say, they're racist and hate brown people. It's like, well, let's actually, as you said, Dustin, let's have a debate about the actual policy, an honest debate, an intellectual debate about what the ramifications are, what the true outcome is, and if there are unintended consequences, which there always are, especially when it comes to federal programs.
Absolutely. Well, we've got another break here. We will be right back with Rick Becker. I am Dustin Gawrylow, filling in for Steve Bakken.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270. Talk of the Town. News, talk, and sports for Bismarck, Mandan. SuperTalk 1270. Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270.
And welcome back to Talk on the Town, or Talk of the Town. I forget which it is. I'm Dustin Gawrylow, filling in for Steve Bakken. We've got State Representative Rick Becker with us today, and we are discussing his campaign for U.S. Senate. Rick, let's get into the little bit of nitty gritty with votes and the dynamics that we see in the national and local scene as far as the Trump factor, basically. We'll put it that way. I was looking at the 535 scoreboard that shows that John Hoeven, for his career during the 4 years that Trump was in the White House, voted 92% in line with Trump. Kevin Cramer was 94%. But you look at somebody like a Rand Paul, who is far more libertarian, far more philosophically in line with where you are, I would say. And his score was 68%. And the question that comes in, and I know that I've been critical, this is the one area that I've been critical of you and of a lot of liberty movement folks, is that there's either the perception of pandering or outright pandering to Trump in order to draw in some of his hardcore people, and that to get more of the hardcore Trump people, you are sacrificing some of your core beliefs on, basic liberty principles, and that basically you are trying to build a bigger tent to fight the big tent that has taken over and, for lack of a better word, corrupted the Republican big tent. There's a balance in there, and how do you decide where to walk away or set aside your own personal, more hardcore philosophical beliefs in order to grab more people? How do you make that calculation?
Well, that is a fantastic question, because your premise with regard to me isn't 100% wrong. It's a great question, because the answer is I don't try to get more people by modulating my positions. I try to get more people by simply reaching more people with my message. I've always been of the mindset that if I could get everyone to vote and have everyone understand what I'm about and maybe what my opponent is about, if I lose, I'm completely content with that. I'm not trying to win a seat. I'm trying to win to further principles. So when you say you've been critical of me, I guess I'd love to hear where you are thinking that I have compromised liberty-minded values to fall in line with Trump. Now, I will grant you that what you call pandering to the Trump base, I have pointed out where I've been in line with Trump, so that because what you would do for any group, you show what their interests are, you show where you align with those interests. And especially if there are differences, which I pointed out, say, for instance, John Hoeven voted for the $1.2 trillion bipartisan Biden bipartisan infrastructure bill, which was horrible. Trump was completely against it. I'm completely against it. It was horrible for America. I'm going to point that out. Trump wanted to be able to pull our troops out of Syria and Afghanistan, which is a freedom, liberty position. Hoeven voted against it, and so I point that out where we would be different. So I'm not moving at all. I'm not trying to get a bigger tent in the sense of what people mean. What you mean is expanding what you stand for, and that's the problem with the Republican Party, especially in North Dakota. They've become such a big tent to try and take over every possible seat that what it means to be a Republican can mean almost anything. So I guess I'd go back to you and challenge you maybe on this interview or another where I've compromised liberty values. I'm happy to talk about that at all. The 538 you're talking about, it shows, I think, Hoeven, 92%
Yes.
voting along the lines of Trump. I find it interesting that Liz Cheney, who, by all reports, despises Trump and vice versa, she actually has a higher Trump alignment score than Hoeven does. And I think what it shows, if anything, is my opponent's squishiness, because when Trump was president, just like if any other Republican is president, then you just vote for all the stuff no matter what. And so basically every possible big spending bill that Hoeven could vote on when a Republican is president, he'll vote on. Whereas if a Democrat's president, he'll only vote on half of them. Rand Paul is definitely going to be more principled, and so would have a lower score. Also in 538, it points to expecting a senator to vote more along the lines with Trump if the state voted Trump in, if the voters in that state voted Trump in by a larger margin, which is really more of a squishiness test than it is any sort of principles.
Well, yes and no, because I know that one of your positions in lines has been that is John Hoeven listening to his constituents, and obviously, I take this scoring system to show that the lower the score, the more a senator is voting with their own personal beliefs, and the higher the score, the more they are just trying to not end up in the firing range of someone like you with regard to the public in their own state, because in North Dakota, obviously, Donald Trump is very popular, and standing up against him wouldn't play well with the crowd. And I think that this leads into another very specific dynamic in the Senate, which is Mitch McConnell, and how much a senator is expected and required to vote party line or vote where the leader wants them, on the issues of the large multi-trillion-dollar spending packages, whether they be disaster relief or build back better or infrastructure. A lot of that comes not from the leadership in the White House, but leadership in the Senate. And so I don't know if you want to go into that area, but I've always been a long-term critic of Mitch McConnell. I think that, yes, he knows how to wrangle and herd the cats extremely well, but in my view, he's not at all promoting a philosophy that is in line with, a core conservative policy outside of simply opposing everything that Democrats want.
Right. Well, I agree. I agree with you completely. I just got someone asked me this morning, if I get in, will I vote against Mitch McConnell? And my answer is that I hope that there is a good competition, that there'll be more than just Mitch McConnell running, and then my vote will go to whoever's most conservative. But as far as kowtowing to the leader and voting or doing what they want, I don't understand that. I mean, because you have to ask yourself, well, why would you do that? I mean, is it to get a chairmanship or to be on the right committees or to direct lobbying firms and donor PACs to get more money into your account? And if that's the case, then what you're talking about is the importance of reelection. So the only reason you would kowtow to the leader is because you're concerned about money and power and being reelected, none of which I care about. So, I mean, I don't want to say I don't care about money, but I don't care about trying to get a huge amount of money into my coffer to be reelected. That's I guess what's different is you have people that will sell themselves and sell their vote for that exact purpose, to be reelected.
Right. And my understanding of how a lot of Congress and the Senate works comes from what Justin Amash has disclosed about how getting a chairmanship is about how much money you can donate to the caucus campaign fund. And to donate that kind of money to the caucus campaign fund, you've got to be bringing in a lot of PAC money. So it's actually very enlightening. If folks want to know the dirty details and dirty secrets of Congress, look up the Justin Amash video on how these things work and how it is a infinite circle of that can only lead to corruption. You know, I've always said that people, when they run for offices, you know, they generally start out with pure intentions, but it's just a matter of time before they get sucked in to going down the wrong road and getting into these games of taking what could easily be described as dirty special interest money in order to buy themselves more influence in the party.
Yep. And Thomas Massey has talked about the same thing. But the thing is, you don't have to play the game. I mean, it's expected. You're told you have to play the game, but you don't actually have to play the game. And what I keep saying is that your real power, the only power that you're supposed to have, is the power of your vote. And that can't be taken away. Yep, you may not get on the cool committees, you know, you may not get power positions, but if you're there for the right reasons, that doesn't matter too much to you.
Exactly. Well, we've got about 2 minutes left. Are there any closing statements that you would like to make in your pitch for running for U.S. Senate?
I think what I would say is there are many, many differences between John Hoeven and myself. But if it really just came down to try and simplify things, it's our understanding of the proper role of government. If you look, people in this race have a particular advantage because they can look at our records. I've got 10 years as a state legislator and a tremendous amount of content out there to look at. John was governor for 10 years and senator for 12 years. And what he stands for is the type of Republican position that believes in big government, big spending, and cronyism or corporate welfare. That's what he's been about. And I mean, he's got a strong record of that with ethanol subsidies and wind subsidies and more extensions for those, until the point that they hurt coal and oil so much that now he's in favor of coal subsidies. And it's just a never-ending stream of using taxpayer dollars to try and accomplish what he thinks government should be accomplishing. Whereas my position is really simple, and that is government has no role in that whatsoever. Our job is simply to protect life, liberty, and property, and we can do so best by having policies that keep government out of our lives as much as possible and keeping people's taxpayer dollars, their own money, in their own wallet.
Absolutely. I think that overall that sums up the overall the disagreements between the various factions in the Republican Party right now. That's all the time we have today, Rick.
All right.
So thanks for coming on. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken. We will be right back.
Talk of the Talk, 1270.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken. Weekday mornings starting at 9 on SuperTalk 1270 and the free SuperTalk 1270 mobile app.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union studio. SuperTalk 1270 on Alexa.
Hiya.
Find out how at supertalk1270.com.
Goodbye.
It's time for Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270.
Good morning. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken. And at the top of this hour, we're going to speak to a fellow from Mandan Sporting Goods. I forget his name. Ransom? Brandon. Are you there, Brandon?
I'm here, yep.
Hey, good to talk to you. I think we met once, actually. I just kind of wing this segment with our sponsors, so I kind of leave it up to you to fill in.
No, that's fine. It's almost, I say the same thing every week. There's not a lot that's changed as far as what I got, but I did. Me and Steve talked last week about some ammo I was getting actually from Russia, so I did get that in.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, what it is, it's AK ammo, so it's Barnell is who makes it, which I think, if I'm saying right, I'm guessing it comes from the same plant as like the Tula or the Wolf. It's just steel cased 7.62 by 39. That pallet did show up last week, and from what all my vendors are telling me and whatnot, that's probably going to be. I don't know that we're going to get anything like that from Russia anymore after the way things are going and the sanctions and stuff like that. So I have 96 cases of that in stock right now. It's 123 grain, full metal jacket. It's just steel case, so you can't reload it or anything, but it's way cheaper than anything that would be brass cased, I guess. So.
Well, the AK guys are going to, I don't know how many there are around here, but I'm sure they will be rushing to your store this week to get that.
AK or, SKS, it'll work in that too. There are some people that are putting together, AR platform guns that shoot that same round too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I keep an eye on a lot of that sort of stuff on YouTube and another guy, Brandon Herrera, I'm sure you know who he is. Yep. I kind of keep it. That's my exposure to that and other policy issues. I belong to a group called the Firearms Policy Coalition, and they keep me up to date on all this kind of stuff. I'm not as in tune to that as I am on the economics and political broad spectrum side of things, but there's a few good sources for keeping an eye on that sort of thing. How about other ammo? Are you are stocks better as far as availability on the things that have been short the last 2-3 years?
No, I mean, I do have. I was just going to reference that too. If it's starting to warm up here a little bit now and whatnot, and gophers and whatnot, I do have a pretty good supply right now. I won't say what that'll be in a month or a couple of weeks, but I do have some value pack stuff of 22 long rifle right now. I got one load by MagTech, another by Winchester. I actually do have a little bit of 22 mag on the shelf right now. So just to keep that in mind, I guess, with everything, starting to warm up and gophers and whatever else and stuff like that, I do have some of that. Or just to go out blinking, shooting targets, whatever you want to do with it. It's been quite a while since I've actually had any kind of supply of 22 long rifle on my shelf, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's been, gosh, probably 5 years since there's been any sizable, the 550 bricks available anywhere. Oh, okay. Oh, we got a caller. Let's go ahead and take that. Maybe it's about what Brandon's talking about.
Hey, morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning. What's on your mind?
For the weekend, the Violence Against Women's Act was renewed and some of the anti-gun stuff that they put in there. Did you guys notice that?
I have not noticed that. Brandon, how about you?
I did not see anything there either, no, but he would have to inform us, I guess.
Okay, so there's 3 things in there. Some of it got taken out, but and 20 Republicans voted for it as well. None of them from our state. I don't know about the House if Armstrong did, but I seriously doubt he did. But so one of them is anytime now that you get a denial on your NICS background check, Brandon, they're going to actually have a federal investigation of whoever. If they get denied, every person who got denied, whether it was right, wrong, or otherwise, they're going to get investigated. They're not going to be able to exercise their rights until the feds investigate that. And then they're going to allocate, I don't remember how many millions of dollars into their gun safety research, which you know what that means. They're going to use it to tell everybody how bad guns are and make gun owners look like crap. And then the worst one is, we had all these, like our state too had the law where we're not, our state law enforcement doesn't have to help the feds enforce any unconstitutional gun control laws. Well, now the ATF can deputize any state law agency they want as ATF agents to enforce their unconstitutional gun bans, gun control, whatever. You can't have this magazine, So there shouldn't have been one Republican that voted for it. I mean, you always get a handful of them that do, but when you got Democrats in control, man, these people are rats. It just blows my mind how anybody can vote for them. But you know, you had Rick Becker on. I'd like to say when the what were the people from Florida that came up here, the gun prohibitionists? You know, the little skinny guy, whatever his name was. They had a whole bunch of them. We had a Second Amendment rally down by the Civic Center. Rick Becker, I'd like to thank him. He was one of the few politicians who showed up there. Him and Steve Bakken. And I can't remember Ole Larson. I think Karen Cowles was there, and that was it. But Parkland, that's who they were. But I mean, you know, it's ridiculous what they put in these. Nobody knows it passed because, you know, everything going on now is the big war over in Ukraine. Whether that's even real or not, I haven't a clue. I mean, it's real. People are dying, but I mean, you know, so I don't know. Maybe you guys want to look into that a little more. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So I'm not sure what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean the issue of the state trying to nullify the ATF and federal overreach in general has been a longstanding issue. And this last session, they did pass one of the bills that looked at basically disallowing any state or local law enforcement from cooperating and enforcing laws that would be unconstitutional. They, of course, I believe the bill, if I'm remembering right, I may be wrong on this because this is not in my wheelhouse of things that I deal with as a lobbyist, but I think that it left it up to the director of the agency that the law enforcement officer was in. So in a sheriff's department, it would be up to the sheriff. In a police department, it would be up to the chief to decide. You know, and that obviously you want to allow for.
Now, though, Dustin, that's null and void because the ATF can now deputize those guys as federal law enforcement officers with the reauthorization of this.
And when did that go through?
That's why they did it. It was this weekend. It went through the House and the Senate voted it through. I think Saturday night they did it. So,
really?
Yeah, that's Biden and the rest of his cabal's way of fighting back against us defending our Second Amendment rights as a state.
I'm not shocked that the feds would try to override the states and localities that are trying to get out of their programs. You know, part of this comes down to how much federal money state and local law enforcement take, and you know, all of these big surplus vehicles and basically you know, riot gear type of stuff that the feds give the local law enforcement. There's strings attached. You know, anytime the federal government gives you money or tools or equipment, you know, there are strings attached to that. It's not just a gift out of the goodness of their hearts. And, you know, so when these local governments accept that money or accept those vehicles or whatever comes through, they have to recognize that that's not necessarily a freebie. You know, there are no free lunches as we say in economics. And when the federal government's giving you something, they're going to want something at the other end. You know, they're going to want cooperation and all of that. And when you have states exercising their 10th Amendment right to not do those sort of things, the feds are going to fight back and try to draw people back in and draw agencies back in. So that's not real shocking that they would try to go down that road. Now, the question is, how will our local governments handle that? And how will our state government handle that? Because the legislature clearly intended to fight back against that sort of thing. So that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, go on. I got to run, guys, but you can go on ammoland.com, and they got a good story on there. It covers what was passed and when it was. So check that out. I got to run. Good talking to you guys. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for the call. Yeah, Brandon, I don't know how much you get into the political side of this when you're on with Steve, but you know, a lot of these issues really do come down to the willingness. You know, government and legislators and local government can stand up and say the right things rhetorically, but when it comes down to it, it's very hard for these entities to object to what the federal government wants them to do because of the various goodies that they've gotten over the years.
Sure.
And so, I don't know how deep into this rabbit hole you want to go, but it definitely is an issue for a lot of people.
Right. I can see that. And I've seen that in the past, too. I mean, I understand how that all works, too. I guess not 100%, but, they give us that stuff, kind of back in the day. What I can refer back to is like the seat belts, when they enforced that law, as far as nothing gun related there. But I mean, they basically were going to cut off all the federal funding if we didn't jump on the wagon and say, okay, now we're going to, enforce that everybody has to wear. And that was a long time ago, but I mean, no different than what we're talking about here, I guess. I don't think.
Exactly. I mean, in the real world, a lot of the things the federal government does, we would call extortion if you and I did it to somebody else. Right. And right. When the federal government does it, it's just called policy. So, right. That's how they operate. And so, anything you'd want to add on your end before we cut for break?
Boy, nothing I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, great. Well, I'm filling in for Steve Bakken. My name is Dustin Gawrylow again, and we're going to cut for break a little bit early, I think. Today's sponsors are Dvorak Motors, where your family for a lifetime. Big boy, just get in line. It moves fast. Hit Incorporated, independence, dignity, respect. Hit Incorporated, and we will be right back.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town. Bob. News, talk, and sports for Bismarck, Mandan. Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken. And with me now is a guy that I've known for a very, very long time, former state senator Joe Miller. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Dustin. Thanks for having me on. It's great to talk to you on the radio.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we had Representative Rick Becker on earlier, and we're doing this "Is it live or is it Memorex" thing for the kids that don't know that reference. We're barely old enough to know that reference, but yeah.
I just threw a Memorex tape in the garbage. It was brand new, never opened, or actually it was not Memorex, it was Max L. But I'm like looking at the thing. I'm like, this is brand new. This is an expensive tape, but I had to chuck it. So
those things are actually fetching premiums. VHS tapes now, blank VHS tapes are going for $5 a pop if they're brand new in the wrapper.
Oh, really?
It's crazy. 20 years ago, they were worthless. Everybody threw them out. Now, because it's kind of like the cash for clunkers thing, now everybody wants the clunkers. Because
I still have it. It's in there. I can fish it out of the trash.
It might be worth $5, and probably not for audio. Maybe it's $1 for audio. Those are probably still used a little bit more than VHS.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't think I have the incentive to go after it anymore.
Right. Yeah. So Joe, you and I have known each other since college. And,
yeah.
Frankly, in the political realm, I think I don't know anybody else longer, at least in the professional political realm. And you served for 8 years as state senator. Was it from 2008 to 16, right?
That was correct. Yeah, I got elected in 2008 in District 16. Beat out an incumbent there, and served for 4 years, got redistricted with another Republican, and then had a primary race, and I won that. And then I ended up in District 10, served 4 more years. I was Agriculture Committee Chairman, and now I am married with 4 kids and farming at home. and that's my life now.
Yeah, and that happened all very, very quickly.
Yeah, everything escalated. You get married, and then all of a sudden you got 4 children in your lap. But it's pretty fun. It's great. We just had a skating show this past weekend for my 2 oldest daughters, and now it's kind of fun to watch that and see how they interact with people. And my one oldest daughter, she is maybe a little bit of a chip off the block. She definitely likes to talk to people, and she's just very sociable and outgoing. And so I'm excited to watch them grow up.
Yeah, so this segment's a short segment, and we'll get it more into the nitty gritty of what we're going to talk about once we decide what that is during the break. But you're very unique amongst recent elected officials in that you basically term limited yourself out, and you've been very vocal on the term limits measure. And so when we get back from the break here, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other things that are going on in the world of politics in North Dakota, including sort of what I've been terming for the last few months as the Republican Civil War, which has been going on as long as the Republican Party has been around, as far as I know. But things have gotten a little bit dicey. But we will be right back after these messages. And I am Dustin Gawrylow, filling in for Steve Bakken.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken. Weekday morning starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app. Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken. I believe he'll be back later this week. I'm talking with former state senator Joe Miller, and before the break we started to talk about the term limits issue, and you've kind of been sort of a spokesman on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the treasurer for the initiated measure, putting term limits on the ballot for this fall. It will be on the ballot pending final approval from the Secretary of State. It's the signatures have been collected, they have been submitted, and now we'll just be waiting until we know for certain that it'll be on the ballot. But as of right now, it's most likely going to be on the November ballot, and so people can expect to see that there. I guess I wouldn't know what number it would be yet, but
it's going to be Measure 1 because you were the
Measure
first
1
to get your signatures, and unless there's some sort of a difficulty in the approval process of verifying that slows it down such that it would end up behind the 60% rule, folks who haven't submitted yet and are kind of, from what I've heard, scrambling because they had some difficulties. They found out that it's not that easy to do initiated measures, despite the rhetoric that they've been putting out for about the last year, saying that it's too easy to do. I think they're learning that that's not necessarily the case.
That would be somewhat ironic if they had trouble getting on the ballot, considering their cases it's too easy. But I think in the end, like our issue, term limits, it's been very popular, so it's been very easy to get people to sign. People hear that, do you want to sign up for term limits? Like, absolutely. And I think that's going to give us a whole lot of headwind going into the November election. So I don't know if I'd be so bold to say how it's gonna turn out, but I would say we have a good shot at winning.
Well, I have gone on the record of predicting that it's going to be 68% yes, which is probably on the high side of the numbers. But I know that in 2020, when I was managing the effort to defeat Measure 2, on our polling, we included a measure about term limits. We didn't detail it at all. We just left it term limits. Are you for it or against it? And the strongly and somewhat agree was in the mid to high 60s. And so I think that with all the things going on, all the dynamics in the various districts in North Dakota, statewide issues, as well as just the national rhetoric that is going on, I think that it's a perfect storm for this issue. And that being able to have that out there is going to generate a lot of coattails for certain candidates locally and at the statewide level, and that the overall turnout should boost turnout and be a pretty good winner. I could be wrong. I don't have a very good track record of predicting these things, but I think that this one might be an outlier where I might nail it.
Well, certainly would be one that it'd be a good bet, I would say, Dustin, that it's probably going to pass. I mean, it's a simple change. It's for members of the House and Senate of the North Dakota legislature and the governor, and that's as far as it goes. And it's a simple term limit of 8 years per office. And so you can run for House, serve for 8 years, run for Senate, serve for 8 years, and now you've been in Bismarck for 16 years. You know, that's a long time. I served for 8 years. I was chairman of the Agriculture Committee. I felt like I got some things done in Bismarck, and I probably could have had a lot more success had I not been bumping up against some of that incumbency that sort of slows you down a little bit. Sometimes that can be a good thing, but I look at one of those articles I was reading from the Grand Forks Herald some months ago. They were talking about term limits, and they're singing its praises to some, or not term limits, but singing incumbency to praises somewhat. And I thought it was they were kind of making my argument at the same time they were trying to slam term limits. But, they say somebody serves for many years, they get in the right committee, they serve as chairman of the appropriations committee or whatever it might be, and they get really powerful. And why should it take, 30, 40 years of serving to get the power necessary to do the job that people want to do? That shouldn't be, because not everyone's capable of serving so long. Physically, it sometimes is impossible. You might not live that long, and so why should one group of voters from one district be penalized and another group of voters from another district be rewarded simply because somebody was able to serve for a very long time? That's kind of a silly way of doing business and government. And I think term limits just evens it out, makes it accessible for everyone. It broadens the universe of people serving in the legislature. It gives more ideas, more voices. It's a great thing for government. It's a great thing for Republican government. It's a great thing for democracy.
Yeah, and I'm the type, being a political science geek, I can see both sides. I understand the arguments for and against. My natural position is to be in favor of it, but I understand the loss of institutional knowledge is a negative. But at the flip side, creating turnover, you do allow for different types of experience and different types of institutional knowledge in other institutions to be let into the system. And so, it's probably about a wash if you do the math. And I was an advocate of more of a 16 years any way you want them type of approach, because my theory is it takes about 8 years for the average person to figure out what's going on. But if they haven't gotten done what they want done in 16 years, they probably never will. And so you've got all sorts of long-term incumbents. You look at somebody like Ray Holmberg, who just announced that he's retiring. He's been in there for longer than either one of us have been alive. And yes, he wielded power, and frankly, for the purposes of bringing back the Bakken to Grand Forks, he probably was fairly effective as far as legislators go. But at the same time, how many other people that were more with the times and more up to date on various things were not allowed the entry into the system that otherwise could have and could have brought some positive effects into that process.
One thing, we'll see how that all plays out now because Ray Holmberg is retiring, and so when you look at Grand Forks' political makeup now, pretty young. There won't be hardly any long-term incumbents, save a couple guys that have been there for 16 years, maybe at the most. Corey Mock is going to be one of the long-term incumbents now, and he's pretty young yet. So, we'll see what happens to Grand Forks. Is there going to be a big vacuum all of a sudden? They won't be getting any money and any power. I doubt that. That's really not exactly how that works. I mean, when you can tip the scales to your benefit, yeah, you might get a few more projects. You might get a little bit more money, but it isn't some major wash. I mean, it's the biggest problem we have is me being a rural legislator is I think there gets to be more of a vacuum of money and power just going to Bismarck and Fargo and these large cities, and they're getting more of it because they have so many more legislators than anyone else, and they can kind of team up and divide the spoils. But I just don't see Grand Forks losing clout simply because they've completely lost, they've lost Holmberg entirely. I think they still have a lot of clout simply because UND's there and everybody's graduated from UND. So. Yeah.
The UND factor is probably much stronger than, frankly, even party alliances and affiliations. Because it crosses the party lines significantly. Whenever there's a UND issue, everybody forgets which party they're in, and they're racing to see who can claim that they brought more back to UND. And getting into the rural districts, I think that rural districts generally don't ask for much, and so rural districts are always because they generally think that they're not going to get anything if they do ask for it, so they don't bother asking for it, and they try to nibble around the edges in other areas. And so the big cities in North Dakota, or at least go for cities in North Dakota, do have the bulk of the influence and sway when it comes to at least the appropriation side. And with Wardner and Pollard also leaving this time around and retiring, there's going to be quite a significant vacuum as far as leadership. I suspect that there's going to be some pretty interesting fights in both chambers for leader, and that'll be interesting to see what shakes out.
Yeah, I don't know where the Senate is going to go for leadership right now. I could guess, but I'm out of the loop with personalities there, and I don't really know who desires to even do that job at this point. I mean, to be majority leader gives you some power sometimes, but a lot of times you lose some influence too because you're not serving on a committee anymore. You're in an office talking with lobbyists and other people, and you're not hands in making the sausage anymore. So sometimes that can be kind of off-putting to some legislators who really like to be on that committee, doing that committee work.
Yeah, in the Senate, the names that have been floating around are David Hogue and Ron Sorvag. And then there's a few others that have been floating, but I don't know how serious they are. In the House, I would personally like to see someone like Scott Lauser become majority leader. Scott's by far the best merger of the sort of insider and conservative sides of things. He's kind of like the intersection of those two factions. And so I think he could do really well in that position. And it's just a matter of getting him there. He's been assistant leader for, I think, 2 or 3 sessions now, 2 sessions at least. And so he might be okay, or he might have a shot there, but I don't know if he wants a job, because it's not necessarily the type of job that people necessarily want to throw themselves out for. And in the Senate, David Hogue is, for all the disagreements he and I have had over the years, he has a pretty good strategic mind when it comes to calculating the battlefield of legislation. But Joe, guess what? We're out of time already. It goes fast,
right? Yeah.
So we'll have to have you back on next time I'm on. I've been Dustin Gawrylow, filling in for Steve Bakken.
Talk of the Town.
The SuperTalk 1270.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken on SuperTalk 1270.
Good morning again. This is Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken for our last little segment. And we have Greg Shue with the Bismarck Bucks on again. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Dustin. How are you this morning?
Oh, I've had quite the morning, but we don't have time to get into that. It's been chaos.
Oh, well,
yeah.
That's Mondays, right?
It's a Monday for the books for me. But how are things over there with the Bucks?
Things are excellent. We are 1-0 so far. We had a great outing yesterday in Green Bay. We won. And it's a great start to the season as we turn and come home here, right, to play our home opener this coming Saturday. So we're off to a good start.
Excellent. Yeah, 1-0. I guess got to get the parade ready, right?
Yeah. Anytime you can pick up a road win, right, that's fantastic. So, and to start out the season even better. So we're planning on having a huge celebration, right, and big attendance this weekend with the Bucks home opener. So
excellent. Why don't you tell us more about? I don't have any notes for today, by the way, other than what was for last week. So I'm going to rely on you again.
That's all right. That's why I'm here, right? To pick up the pace. I know you're having a calamity Monday. So,
yeah.
I will take the ball and run with it, Dustin. All right.
Yes.
So Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Bismarck Event Center, Bucks' first home opener of the season against the Sioux Falls Storm. And we do have a lot of ticket promotions going on, Dustin, which I would like to let our fans know. Obviously, we're partnering with the Home Show, which is also down at the Event Center over in the exhibit halls. Partnering with them, people go down to the Home Show, have an opportunity to get tickets to the game on Saturday. And we do have a lot of promotions out there. We have a Fan Finder, which is a brand new promotion we're kicking off today, tomorrow. We'll have Brent on later in the week to talk about that with you guys. But tickets are available at bismarckbucks.com or down at the Event Center box office. And our number here is 701-595-0771. Obviously, we still have opportunities for people to purchase season tickets or simply come out and do a group outing, and we have discounts on group outings as well. So we've kind of got everything covered for the fan out there.
Excellent. I've got. I do have on this something about a March 20th kids camp.
Yes. Yeah. The day after our home opener, we're going to ask those players to come back over to the Event Center and help us put on our first youth kids camp here in Bismarck for the year. We have 2 kids camps total. We have another one in June. March 20th in the afternoon. And there's still opportunity for you to sign up your kids if you call our Bucks office. 701-595-0771. Players will be down there. We'll be having all kinds of activities and learning about football and just having fun. Our mascot will be there. It'll be great. So we encourage everybody to sign up for the kids camp.
Excellent. Well, that's all the time that we've got today. Thanks, Greg. This has been Dustin Gawrylow filling in for Steve Bakken. I'm sure I'll be in some other day. See you then.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken. Weekday mornings starting at 9 on SuperTalk 1270 and the free SuperTalk 1270 mobile app.